I just would like to start just by thanking the board for just your dedication to the school district and everything you do for us. And also, just another big thank you. Our population at Summit View has continued to grow over the past 3 years, and with preschool, we have about 900 students now. So last year's allocation, we were fortunate enough to add a half-time assistant principal, Mr. Smith here. And it has just been a tremendous help for our school. You know, it's freed up time for Mrs. Callahan and I to truly be instructional leaders. So 0.5 might not seem like a lot, but for our population, it really has helped us. So a big thank you to you and your support in that area. With our data, I'm not going to touch on it because obviously I know you have it in front of you, but just a kudos and excited for our school that we did meet our goal this year. If we were able to turn our numbers into an index, our goal this year was 102, so we did improve from a 98 to a 102. So very proud of our school. And even looking at our percentage proficient and distinguished, we did increase in all areas, although some of the areas that we'll address definitely through our CSIP aren't where we want them to be, but definitely we are showing improvement in all areas with our data. If you want to go to page 4 of 23 or 22, I think, this is a document we created, and I'll touch on it in our CSIP as well. But this is a map data analysis tool that we put together, and this is a monitoring tool that not only we use at the administrative level, but we also, our teachers use this as well. They're required to put in all of their map data for reading and math after each testing session. And the tool is visually appealing. If you look at this one, this is an actual 4th grade example, and you'll notice that the green numbers means that they are meeting benchmark for MAP, and then obviously the red, they're not meeting. So we have currently for this 4th grade 19 meeting and 4 not meeting. But what's really powerful too is that each trimester or each fall, winter, and spring when they're taking it, it'll actually give that specific classroom an overall percentage.
Theirs is great.
Theirs is different.
Theirs is great.
Oh, sorry. I knew you were pointing at something over there.
I know
Yours,
I'm getting a little colorblind.
Mine is colored, sorry. But obviously, if you could see it in color, you'd be able to see. You can't see what I saw. Mine's not. But each time we do our MAP test, the teachers obviously put that data in, and then we monitor that through our team meetings and discussion. And I'll hit on some of our intervention data that we're using as well. The next page is our individual student MAP goal setting. And traditionally at Summit View, we would do goal setting with grades 3 to 5 because we used obviously our KCSD scores. And it's really exciting now that we have our MAP data because we're actually able to do goal setting across the board. So we do not test our kindergartners in MAP, but we do goal setting 1st through 5th in reading and math. So all students are aware of what their RIT scores are. They know what their goals are. The teachers meet with them individually. So even though we have a 1st grade template, it's individualized for each student based on what their score is. They set goals that are appropriate. For some students, their goal may be 10 or 15 RIT points. For others, it may be 2. So it's definitely, it's based on each student.
Can I add that when the students went in for this term to take their MAP test, they went in knowing their goal, and some of the teachers would put a Post-it note up there so the kids would know, but a lot of the older students even, they could articulate and say, I know that my goal is this number, and when they left, a lot of them were so excited because they met their goal and they were able to tell that to the teacher, so they really are internalizing the goal setting.
On page 6, this is where we start, obviously, goal 1. Our first objective deals with our free and reduced lunch population. Traditionally, this area of students, just traditionally, they perform lower than the rest of our population. And for them to meet the goal for No Child Left Behind for reading and math, that population has to have an 8% increase, which is pretty significant. So they are performing below level. So we've tried to target many of our actions around them. When you look at some of these strategies and action steps, It targets all students, but we're really specifically trying to really target those free and reduced lunch students as well. Using all of that assessment data that we have, whether it be MAP, DIBELS, Common Assessment, any type of records that the teachers have. And we did our MAP goal setting with them, or our MAP. We had all of the scores and actually had them highlight students, and so we were able to target those at-risk students for them. Teachers keep a data organization system. It could be a binder or a crate, so they can keep track of where these students are scoring as well as what interventions they have in place. One thing we've targeted this year that's different is with our common assessment data. We've created both an individual and grade level analysis tool. So after specific common assessments, the individual teacher fills out a tool, and it talks about what their percentage of proficient and distinguished is, as well as who are those red flag students, those students that aren't performing up to speed, and then what interventions do we need to have in place. So they fill out a form individually, then they meet with their grade level team, fill out a form, and then they come back to our team meeting, and we look at that data as a whole. And what we're looking for, across the board, is there a specific teacher where her students were outperforming, and having that teacher share strategies that she or he is implementing. So that's been very powerful. We've been doing that for reading and math, and then after the first of the year, we'll be looking at science and social studies. So that not only targets our all population, but it does target those free and reduced lunch kids as well. This is in the spring of 2011, we adopted our balanced literacy plan, so I included that as well in that action step. It does have an intervention block as well as our math instructional model, so both of those plans include that intervention for those kids not making the progress. RTI, I feel like this is an area where we've kind of been at the forefront. Our RTI team continues to meet and look at data regularly. We use our MAP data analysis tool that we have along with the goal setting sheet. We do meet to make sure any of those kids that are not at benchmark for their MAP data, that they're at least receiving a 30-minute block of intervention 3 times a week. So we made sure when we did our data analysis with the staff with MAP, we went through, and if there were kiddos that were not in an RTI group, but yet they were still not at benchmark, that's where we pushed back. Tell us what you're doing. Where are you going to find time to meet with those kiddos? Because they have to be in some type of intervention group if we want to see them obviously making progress. Weekly, the teachers do turn in their folder for RTI, so they keep a folder with their RTI data on each individual student, as well as graph data. And this is where it's just been powerful. This is our 3rd year that we've been doing this. Our RTI team meets weekly, reviews the folders still weekly, gives feedback to each teacher, and then those folders are returned. And what's good about our RTI team is not only are we reviewing the data and providing feedback to teachers, but we also take the time within our group to talk about what programs are out there, what interventions are out there, taking that time to share so we have the latest and greatest information, so then we can then send that out to the teachers. The next objective talks about our math intervention, the lab person that we have through a grant. She's meeting with students in kindergarten through 3rd grade. That's specifically who she's allowed to target. But something that she's doing this year to benefit all of our students is on Fridays she's actually collaborating with all teachers K-5 and modeling intervention lessons in the classroom that then they can use in their own classroom. So that was something new that we're doing. The next few pages I'm not going to go through. That's just the RTI plan. So you have that. Anything you need to add? All right, for goal 2, professional practices, something that we take a lot of pride in is our informal observations and daily walks that we do. We, for really the past 3 years, have been in every single classroom at a minimum 1 time a month providing feedback. We track it through an Excel spreadsheet, so not only does it it holds us accountable, because then we meet at the end of the month to make sure Did you walk in all the classrooms? What type of feedback have you given? So not only are we giving feedback written, but at times we're also giving feedback one-on-one, depending on the situation. Also, I feel like we have two levels with our walks. Obviously, we're walking with a purpose of instruction and improvement, but then also each day an administrator's in every room making contact with the kids, interacting. So I feel like, obviously for evaluative purposes, for instruction, improving instruction, we're in there, but then also just that personal connections with students, just in there greeting them or saying hi or interacting. And I think that's very important. The bulk of our CSIP, I feel like, falls within this next section of best practices, really looking at that PPR, self-reflection. This year we are doing our team meetings weekly, which is a change from what we've been doing in the past, and really focusing on, instructional activities, data analysis, the Common Core, any types of questions that are coming up with that, map data. And this is one of our times where I feel like our instructional coach has been instrumental in this process, getting information not only from the state or the district, but then bringing that back to us and then sharing that with staff members as well. We did adopt a new textbook this year, Math in Focus. So that is something where our teachers have required a lot of support and additional training, and that will really be ongoing not only this year, but next, and as it relates to the Common Core. Again, we have our math instructional model and our balanced literacy plan that is site-based council policy, so it is required that all staff members are implementing those. Compass Learning, that is an area where many of our teachers, it's their first experience with Compass, so we've been providing training. There's a training after school today for our teachers, really trying to have them have an awareness so then they can use that with the students, whether it be for interventions, extensions, during workstation time. We have one grade level specifically who is using it in the classroom, but also using it as a homework outreach program, and it's been very successful. Lots of positive parent feedback with Compass. Using the MAP modules, the district has created math modules, and those, at first we weren't sure how receptive the teachers were going to be, but they have been extremely receptive, and we've definitely seen instructional impact after doing those models with the teachers. Also, we are in the process of planning a MAP parent night. It will be in January, and we were strategic when picking January. Originally, we were going to do the fall part in November, but then we felt like if we had 2 rounds of testing data, we'd have our fall and our spring. The kiddos would have gone through, 2 rounds of goal setting, talking about it with their parents, that we'd have better participation in January. So we're going to actually do a session with kindergarten through 2nd grade, and then 3 through 5. And not only just the awareness of what MAP is and what goal setting is, but just what type of resources and interventions are out there, and even sharing that Compass piece, since Compass is powerful because you do have that home link that you can use there. 2 areas, content areas that just consistently keep coming up as weaknesses for our school that we are definitely targeting is social studies and on-demand writing. For social studies, we need to increase about 8% more proficient or distinguished to get where we need to be. Overall, our other content areas are pretty high, and then for some reason, social studies and on-demand are way below. So we're targeting those areas, really looking at our social studies data. We spent some time doing data analysis. Each grade level is determining 2 classroom strategies that they're going to be doing in their class to make some change in social studies, using flashbacks at the 5th grade level. We also met with Deneen, and she had shared some information from high-performing schools across the state in the area of social studies. So we actually met as our instructional team and put together a 3-page handout with key things that schools were doing to show improvement in social studies, whether it be resources or flashbacks, and then we shared that with all of the teachers as another resource for them, and doing that common assessment analysis. And then, I know my time is dwindling, on-demand writing. For on-demand, definitely we're going to be adding scrimmage dates. Instead of doing scrimmage dates school-wide, we're going to do them grade level, so it works with the time for that grade level team. And then 2 models that we've been using sporadically. We want to make it consistent using the CAT and FAT model for 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and then the FAT model K-2, so we can see some consistency across the board. Goal 3 is pretty much outlined. We did add a couple new offerings this year. We have a bank and a photography club, and then we also added on a Saturday, we had a Block Kids Lego activity that serviced about 70 kids, so we're excited about those. I'll end, because I know I have about no time left, with our PBIS. This is our first year of implementation for KCSD. Last year was our planning, and we have just been tremendously pleased with the progress of our KCSD. Our acronym is STAR, and our areas that we focused on were hallways and buses. And already we have seen over a 50% decrease of bus referrals, which is phenomenal. And we weren't sure what type of effect we'd have on our referrals within the building, but they also have reduced tremendously as well. So we're definitely excited. We have a hardworking committee. We meet monthly at a minimum, and our next areas that we're going to focus on is the cafeteria. And then I'll just end with we do still think it's important to do our goal setting. So on page 22, we have set goals school-wide. It's just something that I feel, not only do kids need to do individually, but school-wide. So our goal this year is to aim for a score of proficiency or more. And then obviously you'll see our goals outlined here.
Well, thank you all so much for the opportunity to come and speak with you all. It's always a pleasure every year to get down and speak with you guys and talk to you about all of the neat things that are going on at White's Tower. And listening to Ms. Smith talk and hear her reflection about what's going on at Summit View, it really drives home a point to me about what an amazing district we have. And there's so many similarities between our schools, but yet there's so many things about them that give us all our unique personality. So let me tell you a little bit about what's been going on at White's Tower. I think it's really difficult. I struggle every year to put on paper, what really reflects what's going on at our school, and we kind of get 15 minutes to talk about the highlights. I think that there are some things that have been going on that we really put in place last year with formative assessment and learner targets that honestly we didn't even feel like we needed to put back into our CSIP, because we feel like that has become institutionalized in our building. Our teachers are not only doing it, but they really get it. They get the point about why we're doing it and how it's helping our kids improve. So really excited about the moves that we've taken forward on that end of things. Some areas that we really want to focus on this year are working with our students and keeping them very highly engaged in thinking and having a very high level of discourse when they are having conversations in the classroom, talking about their learning. I don't know how much time you all have spent looking at the new standards, but they are extremely rigorous, and they require students to have conversation on a very high level and to have products on a very high level. In order for us to be able to do that, we've got to teach kids how to do that. So a next step for us is to really look at our accountable talk and how we're using that in the classroom, and how we're using our questioning techniques to make sure that our teachers are helping our kids focus on those high-level concepts. Something else that we're really looking at is modeling proficient work for our students. For several years now, our teachers have been putting our common assessments into goal calculators, and I know that you all are familiar with those. Periodically, our students take common assessments, and those common assessments are great because they give us a window into how well our kids did, what we still need to do to help them improve. And so they've been putting those in the goal calculator, and the teachers have done their own analysis, but we've added another step this year, and that we're meeting with the teachers periodically, and we have it kind of mapped out throughout the year so that we're hitting different common assessments throughout the year so that we can actually begin to have conversations with our teachers about, okay, what went well here? What do we still need to add? What do you feel like is strong about your instruction in this area? What resources do you still need from us? And again, like Ms. Smith said, that's where I feel like our instructional coach has been very valuable to us. And she's able to bring those resources in a district perspective, and she's hearing a lot of those things in her meetings that she goes to. And that's been very helpful, and she's been very immediate about getting those things to us. Another area that we're really focusing on when we're looking at proficient work is live scoring, and I know that's a term that you've heard. Again, I feel like that's something that our teachers are becoming very, very comfortable with. Not only are we giving the common assessment, but then we're backing back with the kids and we're saying, okay, what didn't you get right? How can we fix it? Let's get that right. Let's go back and polish until we get that kid to a 4. Because all of our kids can do that if we work with them on those things. Also, just looking at the math talks, the Foursquare, CAT strategies, those are all next steps for us in terms of just bringing more strategies for our kids to use. I think the thing that we see with the standards is kids have to be able to explain their thinking, and if you give a kid a strategy to do that, they're going to be a whole lot more successful with that. So we are really working on trying to build our teachers' repertoire of those types of strategies, particularly in math, where we're not just teaching the algorithm, but we're using manipulatives, we're using our smart boards, we're using our iPads, we're using everything that's available to us in terms of resources to make sure that our kids are able to come up with a lot of different ways to solve problems. It's really exciting to watch. MAP is huge. MAP is just so cool because now we're already looking at real data. We took a test a week ago, and now we have live data in front of us, and we are already making comparisons between how our kids did the first time through to how they've done this time through. And we did the goal setting piece too. Denise and I went into all of the 4th and 5th grade classrooms, and we met either individually or in small groups, and we helped the kids set goals in reading and math. The the primary kids did it with their teachers, but all the kids had a goal that they knew what it was when they walked into that computer lab to take the test. And it was just, there's energy in the building when the kids were taking the test, because Miss Spencer, I went up 10 points. Miss Spencer, Mr. Miotti, I went up 17 points. I mean, kids going out of their way to find us to say, I met my goal, I exceeded my goal, and it was just, it was really, really, really exciting. So with that said, almost all of our kids went up. They either reached their goal or exceeded their goal, okay? That's great, awesome, we're thrilled for our kids. Now we're stepping back and taking a look at our kids that scored at the 25th percentile or below. And we're saying, okay, what interventions are in place for those kids? What do we still need to do for those kids? How can we look at particularly our Tier 1 interventions, what our classroom teachers are doing to get those kids so that they are a little bit closer to where we want them to be in terms of grade level. But it's really, really exciting to be able to just see that data right now, and we already have a window into what we need to do, what our next steps are, just based on that data. Then we'll also be able to take that and break it down and look even closer at particular strands. What part of math do we need to focus on? Is there a part of our instruction that it's a little weaker? What can we do to beef that up a little bit? Same with our reading. So it's exciting to be able to do that.
Can I speak to that just a minute?
Yes.
I just want to say that I feel like this is the first time I've really seen kids at White's Tower own it. and accept that accountability, because it was immediate for them. And so often when we take our spring testing, kids don't really see it until the fall. It's not very meaningful to them. But with MAP, I feel like they goal set with a principal. You know, they really talked about the strategies that they were willing to do, what were they willing to do, and parents signed that contract too and said, well, what am I willing to do? And then when kids took their MAP test, it was immediate, and they knew immediately. You know, and some kids, when they didn't go up, they were like, can I take it again? I don't know what happened. But this is really the first time that I've really seen kids jump in, you know, with both feet and be accountable for their own learning. So I just feel like that is so intentional that it's going to make a difference for those kiddos.
And you know, I think that when you get that positive energy going, it just feeds off of the next thing and the next thing. And the piece that we added was working with our teachers in a planning session each week. And really the point to that was to take the standards, which are new and can be somewhat difficult to really interpret and understand. Taking those standards, and I actually developed a form that we're using when we meet, and it starts with the standard. And we unpack the standard, and then we look at a learner target, and then we begin to look at activities and strategies and flashbacks and formative assessments. And then what will we do if the kids don't learn it? What will we do if they've already got it and we need to push them to the next level? So it's becoming this sort of concrete way to take each standard and break it down. And the conversations, I think, that we're having with our teachers and the resources that they're bringing to the table as they're beginning to collaborate more and more with each other. Well, I've got this. Well, I've got this. Well, I've been doing this. And then all these ideas, these great ideas, start to meld together. And it's really exciting to see them working together. But I think the thing that's been the most helpful in making that all happen was we saw this little glimmer of success. We saw our kids making that improvement, and it just really makes you want to try even harder for them. So it was really exciting. Another area that we're really focusing on this year, because our math scores are not where we'd like for them to be. I think I allowed us to let our guard down a little bit in that area last year, and you know what happens when you let your guard down, right? You get a black eye. And that's kind of where we are a little bit right now, and so we're getting our guard back up, and we're in to fight hard to make sure that our math scores get right back up where they need to be. And one of the things that we're really focusing on is math fluency, because the research is clear on that. Kids need to be fluent in math facts by the time they're in second grade. They need to really have those under their belt, because if they don't, more difficult algorithms are almost impossible for them as they get up in the higher grades. So we've added that all of our classes are doing. We call it Rocket Math, but it's really Otter Creek Math. And again, it's another goal-setting piece. It's individualized to the students. So they have a goal. They have certain facts that they're working on. They test on those facts. Then they move on to the next one. They color in their little rocket, and they got that, and then they start working on their next set of facts. So we're really feeling like that's going to lay a good foundation for us for improving our math scores over time. Obviously, we are in classrooms quite frequently, which is really, really exciting. I think there's a lot of really good instruction going on at White's Tower, and it's exciting to see that. One piece that we're adding this year is our teachers are going to actually be participating in learning walks and going and providing feedback to their colleagues. We had the first round of that, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and it went really, really well. You get a lot of ideas about things when you go in other people's classrooms, and it was exciting to do that. So we're going to continue to do that, build that community of teachers, educators, learners. We're always learning from each other. We're always growing, and we're really excited to see that moving forward. We are really engaged in the problem-solving aspect. You know, I think sometimes what happens when your scores are not exactly where you'd like for them to be, you get into that problem-solving mode. And so a lot of our grade level meetings have focused around, you know, here's where I'm seeing a concern, here's where I'm seeing an issue. Then we get our coach involved. What resources can we put into that? And what can we do to solve those problems and get our scores where we'd like for them to be? I think that again, the continued work that we have a common language. What does quality instruction look like? What does quality teaching look like? The fact that our CO folks come and walk with us and give us feedback and bring us feedback from other schools and that sort of thing really helps us to grow as a school. As far as our goal 3 goes, pretty much everything stayed the same. We did add a couple of things. We offered a summer camp this year, and we were able to offer that to some of our kids who don't necessarily get to participate in things because they don't always have transportation. So we wrote a couple little grants. We were able to run a bus for our kids. They came in for a summer camp, and those kids that came to that camp, while it was focused on reading, I've seen some of those kids really step forward as leaders in our school this year, and it was a really neat opportunity. So that was new. And we're also adding the bank, the dollar bank for the kids. We're going to be starting that in January when the kids come back. So that'll be a new little extension for us. So it's kind of exciting to see that happen. A thought and a request I'd kind of like to lay on the table is our population is, we run around 515, 520, something like that. And right now we are currently allocated a half assistant principal. This lovely lady is paid for in half through our allocation. And then we scrape together funds through our general fund to pay for the rest of that, because I really feel that for us to be effective instructional leaders, it really takes 2 of us to run that building and really be able to get out into classroom and still manage, you know, discipline and some of the little things that happen. We also have several special education district units in our building. We have preschool in our building. And really to be effective as a leader, I need someone full-time. So we've been able to do that, but it's a sacrifice. We have to sacrifice somewhere, and for us it's really been in the acquisition of technology, and I hate that for our kids. So I really would love to see the board entertain the possibility of extending that funding to at least a 0.75 at a minimum. Full-time would be great, but just a little bit more to cover that would really, I feel like, be helpful. So I appreciate your consideration in thinking about that for next year and how that might fit into the district budget. And I'm sure that other smaller elementary schools are in the same boat, but something that...
You're number 30 on the Christmas list.
Okay, thanks. It is the season of giving, you know. So.
Did he see my smile?
So unless you have questions, additional questions for me, I think...
It says here that your participation rate last year was 55%. What is it now in the extracurricular?
We haven't broken it down yet. I would say about the same. About the same.
Why is that?
I'm sorry?
Why is that? Why is it 50? Only half the kids are
I think
involved?
there's several reasons. One is I do think that transportation is an issue for some of our students. And I believe that the other reason is that I think that kids are very active in a lot of different activities outside of school. We have a lot of kids involved in cheerleading, football, different activities like that we don't offer at school, but they're still involved in activities, but we don't count those in our numbers.
I thought we had a place for that or something.
Yeah, what we're doing right now is we've asked Mr. Morwessel to go to each of the school and figure out how they're tracking in some of those activities, because we have some elementaries at 100% and 97%, so they're doing some things, some school-based during the day, some before and after. They're working out other things, but they're trying to be creative. The ones that are reaching that 97%, 100%, they're trying to be creative with the times that they're offering the activities as well as the activities. So we're trying now to collect all that data to find out how is it that some are able to get to 100%.
Well, and with that said, Dr. Cox-Crewe, we counted simply after-school activities. Okay, we did not count junior achievement, which takes place during the day,
Every
which is a
classroom.
connection.
Yeah,
we
just
didn't
so
count
you know,
anything like
we've had
that.
some as high as 88% that are counting outside only
Right.
activities. So we're hearing that. You just need to be aware that people are finding a way, and we will try to get those ideas to you.
Sure.
Because I'm sure it's higher than I mean, what you're reporting, I understand.
Mm-hmm. We are simply reporting students who participate in STLP, chorus, intramurals, drama club, those things that
Lego
we,
League.
you know, Lego League, those things that we offered.
Someone a while ago said they had a
Strings.
6-week class in kickboxing or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, anyhow, they're creating things
Mm-hmm.
for those numbers, and it's good for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
But if kids are doing things with whatever.
Oh, it's
outside of
huge.
school, that's what we
You
want.
got
We
to
want
take
them.
into account some other things. Some of these schools that are doing stuff like kickboxing are in a metropolitan area. They're close together. It's easier to get one student to take home 3 students. And when you're out in White Star, to get one parent, to take home 3 other students, they may have to drive 60 miles. So you got to think of the geographic area that you're talking about. So I can see where they would have more transportation issues than some other.
Scream me out or correct me on this, but I thought like our goal would be, we want kids involved in positive things, and we want to be, our accountability will be to report that to the board, but not necessarily that you have to put everything on. You have to provide everything. If they're doing other stuff, I think that's great.
Yeah, we just need to know. We need to figure out how to
We
track
need
it.
to know.
Yeah.
If they're not doing, if they're going home and hiding in the room, we need to know that. If that's all they're involved in.
Consistency in the facts.
And the reporting.
We don't have right
Right.
now. So.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
You're doing a good job.
I need to thank Taylor Mill for switching with us today. One of our young teachers' mothers died, and about 4 of us went to the funeral, and it kind of changed how I was going to start my board report today, because I think there's nothing like a reality check to remind yourself of the importance of caring for one another and being there for one another. And I think you probably know me well enough to know that school culture has always been paramount to what we do at Ryland. And I think if you come into our building, you know that people genuinely care about each other. And today was a great example of that, and it reminded me, I thought, maybe I should be a little philosophical before I talk about the business of school and talk about the business of life, because when it comes down to it, we can only do the business of school because we're taking care of each other. I first would like to welcome Michelle Cobb to our school. I listened to Angela talking about having a halftime assistant, and last year when Natalie was at Ryland, she was halftime assistant, halftime coach. And this year we have a halftime coach and we have a halftime assistant principal. And I realize it definitely has been a challenge. But Michelle is a great addition. And I said to her, just talk about what it's like to work for 2 principals.
Well, actually, it's been an awesome experience this year. At the beginning, there are challenges, definitely, but I will say that probably the benefits greatly outweigh the challenges. When I look at, I love working with Kathy and with Christy, and I've had the opportunity to work with 2 principals whose strengths are very different. So I feel like I've really had the opportunity to absorb a lot from both of those people. So hopefully that will make me a better principal in the future, but I feel like it's definitely been a positive opportunity. Like I said, it has its challenges, trying to get back on track with what's on at Piner today when I've been gone for 2 days or back and forth, but it's been a good opportunity.
But it does remind me, we have, as of today, and I include our preschool program, we have 585 students. And it is extremely difficult to do the kind of job that I would like to do when there's only one of us there. And so, we will definitely rethink how we're using our allocation. But I have to say, I've really worked hard to make sure that we do have lots of technology at Ryland, and I feel good about that, because now I feel like we can really focus on personnel, extended personnel. But that's for another time. I know you've been listening to this all day long, and you're probably about ready to fall asleep, so I'll bet.
2 days.
I do want to say, I think that
that we're doing some really good things at Ryland. I mean, I have great people. I have good people in good positions doing good things. And I think that's the ticket to success in any organization, finding the right people to lead the right programs. You know, we didn't have space, so instead of having one Read 180 room with one teacher who teaches it all day long, I have a 3rd grade, a 4th grade, and a 5th grade teacher. And if you have the opportunity to look at Read 180 and System 44 data, you'll see that we're doing good things with our Read 180 program, and our teachers are so excited. All of our teachers are so excited about the success that our Read 180 students are having and the teachers who are facilitating, that I have a couple of intermediate teachers who are planning on setting up their reading in the exact same form that the Read 180 is, and instead of using the Read 180 software, they're going to use Compass Learning. So I'm really excited about that. We're looking forward to that after the holidays. I also have a couple of primary teachers who are facilitating a program that's called the Daily 5, and basically it's a way of differentiating all day long so that RTI is all day long in the classroom. And she's a very cool, calm, and collected teacher who very rarely gets too excited about many things. And after this past round of MAP testing, she sent an email to me and it said, "I'm pumped, I'm so excited, I couldn't even wait to read it," because she doesn't ever get like that. You know, I'm the one that does that in our building. And she said that every one of her students, and she also has part of the 2nd grade special ed population in her classroom, every single one of her students went up in reading except 2, and they only dropped by 1 point. So I think we'll be looking at that as another, you know, it's just another way of teaching reading. But you know, reading is an area that we really keep focusing on. I ask myself all the time, why can we not get those scores where we want them to be? And I was not surprised to look at the beginning of the year, and between the beginning of the year and when Kelly Gamble met with us with our first allocation meeting, we had 30 kids move out and 35 kids move in. So it's been a real transient year for us this year. So we're always, I feel like we're, you know, constantly challenged to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students, those that are coming and those that are going. Let's see, I wanted to tell you that I think this year you know, like everyone, we're really working hard with our RTI program. We've been doing that for the last couple of years, but I feel like our teachers we're doing just so much better a job progress monitoring our bottom, and we're focusing on our bottom 35%, which is a lot of kids. And they're working so hard at getting the data so that they can look at it and see exactly, drill very deeply to see exactly where the areas of strength and weakness are for the kids. So I feel like progress monitoring is going well. We have Kathy Ritchie this year as our building level coach, and she is on fire and has definitely added or lightened a burden from me, because she comes in with great ideas. Every single week, we sometimes have to say, whoa, Nellie, slow down a little. But she just comes in with great ideas. Our teachers are meeting every single week to talk about strategies and to talk about student success. And, you know, the teachers are excited. But I think they're excited because we have the kind of culture that enables them to feel empowered. And that's what we really keep working hard to do. I want our teachers to feel like, well, it is. You know, we have had babies together, not me, but you know, we've had lots of babies. We've lost loved ones. We've really experienced the highs and lows of life together, and that unites us in a very special way. You know, I was thinking about, you know, if you're a mountain climber, you can look at a mountain, or if you know, you can look at a mountain and you can say, wow, that is really a high mountain. Anyone who climbs that mountain is really something else. If you're not climbing the mountain, though, you don't really know just how hard it is. And consequently, you don't really know the feeling of success once you've gotten to the top. So I have a lot of teachers who have been there for a long time. And there's not a lot of turnover at Ryland, which I think is evidence that people feel committed to the school and to each other. I'll go through real quickly and see if there might be any questions that you have for me. I feel like like I said, I feel like our PLC meetings are going very, very well. I did want to tell you, I agree with everything that Angela said about the map. I've always, way before we even as a district paid for a beginning, middle, and end of the year assessment to monitor student progress, I paid for Grade Plus and GMATE at Ryland because I felt like that was the only way to gauge success. I am especially excited, like the other principals are, that kids are assuming responsibility for their learning and that they are so excited about progress and doing the exact same thing to Michelle and me that Angela's kids were doing to Angela and Denise, just stopping us in the hall to tell us how much they've gone up and being so proud of themselves. I kind of feel like when you get kids proud of what they're doing, you don't have to be saying, well, if you do this, then we'll give you this. It's just self-motivating, and they don't need anything but success to motivate them to do better. We have a couple kids who went down a bit, and they're discouraged, and so we're pumping them up and giving them opportunities to raise the scores again. And I do think that it's really paying off big time in Kenton County as a whole. I expect that us having MAP available and all the wonderful reports that it gives to us is really going to help us as a district find much greater success. It's a great progress monitoring tool. This year we did something different too. I told our teachers at the beginning of the year that I was going to challenge our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers to have student-led conferences this year instead of teacher-led conferences. And the teachers were, markedly concerned about it and were very worried about it. But I promised them that I would give them as much support. I would give them lots of ideas, lots of templates, and then they could go to town with it and do with it as they would. They could do their own forms. And I have never seen my teachers so excited about anything as they were student-led conferences. I asked one of my site-based teachers today if there was anything that she wanted me to think about saying to you today, and she said, well, you just have to tell them about our student-led conferences because they were sensational. I had teachers who left the building that night so fired up about what their kids were saying and doing. Every one of them said, I've never felt so excited. I usually walk out of here feeling like I'm half dead after doing conferences all night long. It was really thrilling. Obviously, I walked around and took pictures. It was thrilling to see kids just talking about their strengths and weaknesses and talking to their parents about what they needed to do. If you'll notice, I put one comment on here that really touched my heart. On the second page, the dad in the middle said, I'm very intimidated when I go in and talk to teachers. I wasn't intimidated listening to my son, and I felt like I knew exactly where he was. The kids were excited about it. We had better attendance of parents at those student-led conferences than we have ever had in the intermediate grades because kids wanted their parents there. They had practiced, they had put together their portfolios, and they really wanted their parents to see them. It was fun to hear what the parents had to say. I also provided a list of questions, and then teachers tweaked them, that parents could ask their kids if their kids got stuck. And then we asked that teachers, we gave the parents a homework assignment to write a letter to their children to tell them what they thought about student-led conferences. And it was fun to read what parents actually wrote to their kids. I think we're good and getting better. I think we're smart and getting smarter, and all of those things that we've been using for lots of years. Do we have a ways to go? Of course. But we're climbing the mountain. And we're closer to the top than we've been before. And do we have challenges? Of course we do. We're working hard on those new standards. They are rigorous. We're working hard on modeling good vocabulary and pushing our kids to make good decisions about the work that they're doing. What questions do you have for us? We do have I did put down 88% of our kids with Goal 3. And, you know, I kind of rounded that off when I turned in my board report, but I wanted to be tenacious about it, and I went through, and we were exactly at 88%. That was one of those rare things that I was right on target with. And the few kids that weren't involved, some of them I understood. There are issues of, you know, parents not letting kids stay after school. We have busing 2 days a week, and parents who are having their kids babysit and do things that some families have to do. And the other kids I went to, and I said, what are you doing besides going home and watching TV? And I had a couple kids say to me, oh, playing video games. And I said, and besides that? And the kid said, not too much. And I said, I want you to be involved in something. My goal for you is to find something here at school or something in the community, and then I want you to come tell me, because it's important. As an old school counselor, and I'm sure Michelle, as an old school counselor, would agree, that the kids that we saw the most were kids that weren't involved. So I had one little girl who said to me, I know, I'm not doing anything, am I, Mrs. Barwell? And I said, well, I need you to do something, because we have a lot of great things you can do. So I think it's about challenging kids to make that connection. We'll keep on working on that too.
Well, you're not, you know, I'm happy you're the last and we're finished. I know we're all happy with that, but let me assure you that you brought back a memory that the student is teaching the teacher. When you bring these parents in, as a parent, I remember times I didn't want to go to the school to listen to the teacher or the principal. But when I can see these parents seeing what their children have learned, then you've accomplished a great thing.
You know, we have a large population of kids who are who are staff children. We have about 35 kids. And one of the teachers, when I said we're going to do student-led conferences, one of the naysayers, who's only a naysayer every once in a while, said, well, I won't be coming because I can talk to my child at home. And I said, you will be missing one of the neatest experiences of your life. Well, she came and she said to me, I was wrong. I was wrong. It was so exciting. And it was thrilling for the teachers. I mean, I think they were so thrilled to see that the kids really took this, they were accountable for their work. So we'll see how that goes from now on.
I commend you.
Thank you. Very good report. Keep up the good work. We appreciate you coming and presenting to us, even if you were the last. In contrary to what Mike said, I enjoyed the last one as much as I did the first one.
Aw, thank you, Mr. Wakeman.
Because you brought something different, just like they all did, to the table. And we really appreciate
He's
you.
always got to
Looking
say
for,
something.
I'm not even going to say outside the box. We appreciate you looking at the rest of the world and coming up with something totally different, even if it did come from the moon. Keep up good work.
Thanks.
Well, I think that concludes our presentations from the schools. They all really had that great. I learned something from all of the people that presented. Got 1,000 questions, but I don't want to ask all of them now because they pertain to the district at large. But some things that we can think about as board members and maybe look at in the future to help some of these people with what they've got. Unfortunately, the economy is not what we'd like it to be, so we won't be able to do everything everybody wants. Because,
I like that. I like that point.
if you haven't, if you haven't been listening to the news in Frankfurt, they're complaining about no money, and deficits. So that's not going to be in our favor, yet we've been very good as a district to work at coming up with alternative funding, and I think we'll continue to pursue that, I'm sure, and hopefully we can at least do some of the things that have been asked to support the students, because it is about the students learning and being successful in life. So with that, unless some other board member has some input, we didn't have anybody sign in publicly to speak. I want to make that note before we adjourn. I guess we're open for an adjournment.
The motion we adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.